History of English Literature, New Classical Age, 1700 to 1750, Part B. Short questions with answers, Episode 2. Question 7. Write a short note on the Kobali Papers. Answer. The Kobali Papers is a collection of essays selected from an 18th century daily called The Spectator. The essays of Joseph Addison were contributed to The Spectator. The best of his essays are those which center around the figure of Sir Roger de Coverley, and hence are known as the Kobali Papers. In The Spectator, Sir Roger de Coverley appeared many times on many occasions by Addison and Steele. In this daily, a total of 555 essays were published. Of all his essays, the best known and loved are those which introduce us to Sir Roger de Coverley, the genial dictator of life and manners in the quiet English countryside. Sir Roger de Coverley is an imaginary, eccentric, old-century squire who is supposed to be a member of the Spectator Club in London. Around Sir Roger are grouped a number of contrasted characters, all members of the same club. In literature, the Kobali Papers have an epoch-making significance. In delineating his character, Addison focused on his rural surroundings. He is simple as a child and very popular among his servants and friends. The 17th century English society became alive in the Kobali Papers. The Kobali Papers played an important role in bringing about the rise of the novel. The novel requires an everyday flexible prose style, and this was fashioned by Addison and Steele. They did much to curate the taste for light literature, which made possible the immense and immediate popularity of the novel. The Kobali Papers combined improvement with entertainment, and these two features were later combined in the novel. From whatever angle we consider, the Kobali Papers paved the way for the emergence of the novel. The immense popularity of the Kobali Papers, themselves novels in the making, is an evidence of the widespread craving for the novel form. In fact, the 18th century English society becomes alive in the Kobali Papers. Question 8. What do you know about the Tatler? Answer. The landmark of journalism in English came in the 18th century with the publications of two immortal periodicals, The Tatler and The Spectator. The former was published by Steele from 1709 and Addison was his chief aide. The Spectator contributed 42 of the total 271 papers, which came out between 1709 to January 1711, when the periodical ceased to publish. With the help of Addison, Steele made it something much higher and nobler than an ordinary periodical paper. Indeed, the Tatler is now acknowledged as a great literary creation, and the essays published in it have remained quite absorbing for modern readers too. Along with Steele, Addison is found to have played a significant part in the high attainment as popularity of the Tatler. The essays published in the Tatler were appreciated by the readers, and they continued with increasing vigor. These essays were regarded as piece of literature because essays reflected the manners and morals of the age in a witty and humorous style. Moreover, they were entertaining to the readers. Sometimes political and religious issues were published in the review of the Tatler. Steele's Tatler dealt with a number of subjects like news, literary criticisms, and morals. The aim of all these writings was to inculcate virtue and good sense in the people. The title appeared 3 times a week and ran for 21 months, but it came to an end after the Tories returned to power. The Tories deprived Addison and Steele of their political offices. Question 9. Write a note on the Spectator. Answer. The 18th century is usually characterized as an age of prose literature. In fact, the age is found rich in prose writings. And in these prose writings, the periodicals essays, as it is called, proved immensely successful. In the periodical essays of the 18th century, the Spectator, as joint venture of Addison and Steele, published first in 1711, is an important literary name. The Spectator that followed Steele's The Tatler was a daily and the united efforts of the two masterminds raised the essays published in the Spectator to a high status. Indeed, the Spectator of Addison and Steele is found endowed with a definite plan. It consists of a series of literary essays concerned with social morals and manners. Each issue of the Spectator contains a simple thought worked out exquisitely. This is different distinctly from the next issue, but at the same time, all issues bear a family likeness. The first essay, Mr. Spectator, gives an account of the author himself. The essayist here draws a character sketch of the Spectator with a specific attention to different aspects of his nature. The second essay is the Spectator Club. Here, a sketch of the other members of the club is drawn. These members are the representatives of different important sections of English society of the 18th century. The aim of the Spectator is clearly and frankly instructive. Addison and Steele are here found to refine and reform the taste of the contemporary English society. The essays in the Spectator have social and reformative ends. The achievement of the Spectator was mainly the development of character sketch. Addison in the Spectator writes a series of papers which is known as Coverley Papers. In other words, Addison satirizes the eccentricities of Sir Roger de Coverley Papers published in the Spectator. The Coverley Papers have elements of novel which eventually helped the development of the 19th century novels. The Spectator is found to be the reservoir for the development of journalistic writings in the days to come. Question 10. What do you know about the Dunciad? Answer. The Dunciad occupies a significant place among Pope's satirical works. It is claimed even as his most sustained satirical work. Though designed as a powerful stroke against the bad writings, the poor authorship of his time, the poem has a complex and somewhat obscure history about its origin and purpose. The work was published anonymously in 1728 with Louis Theobald as the hero, against whom Pope had some personal grudge for criticizing his edition of Shakespeare. But the work underwent through and various changes and revisions after its first appearance. The final revised edition of the Dunciad came out in October 1743 with Colley Cibber as its hero. There is no doubt that the Dunciad is a remarkable addition to the satirical literature of the 18th century. It is a collection of episodes, each one of which is a self-contained unit and presents literary dullness and pedantry in general, with attacks on certain specific writers guilty of these vices. The work has not the total impression of the rape of the lock, although its social effects are quite notable. Pope is found here unsparingly attempting a social criticism on the literary degeneration of his age. The Dunciad is a notable satiric poem. Pope is found here, as suggested, relentless in the lack of denunciation of the poor dunces of the time, the bad authors of Grave Street. He is critical not only of vicious and foolish men and women, but also of those whose writing is disgusting. The Dunciad attacks ruthlessly the denizens of Grave Street, on whom Pope's attack is not for vices and follies, but for bad writings. The poem remains, in the words of Titoson, the cruelest satire of his age only because the Pope is the best writer. Question 11. Write a short note on Thomson's The Seasons. Answer. During the 18th century, James Thomson began to write poems based on nature. This new trend is definitely a deviation from the socio-critical poetry of Pope and his circle. Thomson is the pioneer whose four long poems on different seasons, winter 1726, summer 1727, spring 1728, the autumn 1730, appeared together in a collection volume under the title The Seasons in 1730. Thomson's project is an ambitious and grand one, employing a quasi-Miltonic blank verse. He describes the English countryside as different times of the year and mingles his description of nature with mediation on man. The Seasons is a great literary venture of Thomson. The whole approach of this poem is sober, contemplative, and not merely descriptive. Nature becomes here a source of the revelation as well as development of the human character and conduct. There is no doubt a mark of pensiveness in Thomson's contemplation of nature, but the didactic and spiritual aspects of the poem are definitely aspiring for subsequent nature poets, including Wordsworth. Thomson's descriptions of nature scenes vividly present the whole magnificence of nature, whether delightful or dreadful. The liveliness of spring, the splendor of summer, the tranquility of autumn, the terror of winter are all graphically presented and possess the minds of the readers in their turns. Through the description of all the seasons, the poet reveals the vicissitudes of nature, and this reveals him as an active naturalist who was both a lover and painter of nature. The Seasons occupies a significant position in the history of English nature poetry. Though he was not the first poet to praise or describe the world of nature, nobody before him had attempted to write a whole poem in its beauty and diversity. His originality lies in his complete concentration in his subject. Again, The Seasons is the first poem to represent nature, not merely in its varied colors and forms, but as it were, as the image of divinity. The diversities of the seasons were wonderfully brought into one great harmonious whole to secure the unity of effect. Here the seasons stand out as an innovation in English poetry. Question 12. What do you know about Daniel Defoe? Answer. Of the great makers of English prose, Daniel Defoe, 1660 to 1731, stands out as an outstanding figure in the history of English literature. His significance in English literature is found to lie in the number of contributions made by him to the expansion of the literary activities in English. In the first place, he was a journalist who might be taken as a pioneer of English journalists. Defoe's second contribution is found in his religious work, The Shortest Way with the Dissenters. It is actually a strong defense of dissenters against the religious measures advocated by the Anglicans. The work has a good deal of ironic touches and may be called the earliest of prose satires written in an entertaining manner, although its publication led to Defoe's imprisonment. Defoe's literary triumph, however, is found in Robinson Crusoe, published in 1719, when he was almost 60. It proves to be a work of unique and universal popularity. It is an English classic for all times and even claimed as the first English novel. The story narrated in the first person is one of adventure, excitement, and thrill. It is not an autobiographical story, but has an autobiographical account from a shipwrecked trader left on the desert island. The hero is Robinson Crusoe, whose thrilling experiences in a lonely island after a shipwreck are here presented. Defoe's work has the multiplication of details, a wonderful narrative art and storytelling effects. The most interesting thing is, however, the manner of presentation, which is free from all ornamentation and subtlety. The story is told in a clear, straightforward manner and remains all through perfectly precise and practical. Daniel's third contribution is found in the realm of storytelling. He has several other stories of romance and thrills, of which have an essay appeal for the generation of the readers. Of such works may be mentioned Moll Flanders, The Life of John Stafford, Colonel Jack, etc. In fact, Defoe has exhibited to the generations of writers and readers how to make stories popular by the power of invention, by the play of imagination, and above all by the gift of artless, plain manner of narration. Thank you.